Submissions as lawyers hold peaceful protests countrywide. Muslims throughout the country are marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. And Israeli Premier Benjamin Netanyahu leaves the country after holding bilateral talks with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Good afternoon. My name is Akisa Wandera. Now, detectives investigating the killings of lawyer Willie Kimani and two others say they have made remarkable progress after identifying the scene where the murders are believed to have been committed. They're now keen on identifying 2 to 3 people, most likely civilians, who collaborated with 4 detained police officers in executing the killings. This morning, the probe into his killing continued for the second day with submissions from an independent pathologist who was hired by the Law Society of Kenya. Let us listen in to this morning's proceedings.
What we call the actual dissection, and the person who was or the owner of the post-mortem is the chief government pathologist, Dr. Johansen Odwol, but he was also accompanied by a colleague from the same office, Dr. Mugai Jau, and myself. I was present throughout as a representative of LSK, the victims, the next of kin, the victims, and also, of course, other interested parties. My lordship, I'll briefly...
It's blocking my sight of view.
Oh.
I like seeing my persons as they stand.
Yeah, my lordship, I agree with you. We need to see each other.
Yes, we need to see each other.
Otherwise, you must start wondering who was presenting. Thank you, my lordship. We started by identification of these bodies, a very, very important exercise, because we also don't know who the deceased were, and we needed somebody to tell us positively, this is so and so. My lordship, we started by carrying out the autopsy of the late Willie Kimani Kinodia. We understand this was, he was a 32-year-old male, a lawyer by profession. And the brief history we got is that the late Mr. Kimani...
You can go to the findings.
I go to the findings.
What was the cause of his death?
Okay.
Yes.
My lordship, after doing...
Sorry, my lord, could I request that he first gives information about identification?
Yes. Yes, that's... He has said that they were identified.
Yeah, they were identified. Probably what I can just mention is the people who identified. Okay. Yeah, it was Mr. Stephen Sunguya. Stephen Sunguya. Sunguya is Sunguya.
SG.
SUNGUYIA. And Mr.
Well, that's part of the morning's proceedings, but our reporter, Timothy Utieno, was in court. Let's now link with him at the Milimani Law Courts to get more information about some of the submissions that were made in court. Good afternoon, Timothy. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN NewsDesk. Kindly give us the highlights of the court proceedings this morning.
Well, crucial proceedings this morning taking place at the Milimani Law Courts in Nairobi, where an independent pathologist did give and present his report to the court. Remember, this was a pathologist that was hired by the Law Society of Kenya to try and find out what may have been the cause of the death for the 3, Willie Kimani, Josephat Mwenda, as well as Joseph Muiruri in this case. Of course, the court has adjourned until next week, Tuesday, to discuss a different matter that was also before the court in regards to the cell phone data by the 3 and trying to retrace the steps of the 3 from the time they are alleged to have been abducted from the Mavoko Law Court up to last Thursday, when their bodies were retrieved from the Oldonyo Sabuk River in Kilimambogo, Machakos County. Akisa, I am joined with one of the lead counsels pushing for the justice in this case. Senior Counsel John Kaminwa, who is the Law Society of Kenya's representative in this case, thank you so much for joining the program. Perhaps the first question, why was this report important in this case?
We made a habeas corpus application on behalf of the Law Society of Kenya. The purpose of the Law Society, the habeas corpus application, was for the police to produce the late Kimani before the court or his body. Now, according to them, Kimani is dead, so they had to produce a pathology report to show that actually, or to demonstrate to the court that Kimani is no longer with us at all.
So this is a report that is separate from the one issued by the government pathologist, Dr. Johansen Oduor.
Yes, this one is separate from the one that was issued by a government pathologist. This was a private pathologist who was hired by the Law Society of Kenya.
Why did you feel the need to have a different doctor examine the bodies for the three?
Well, I may, to be blunt with you, is that we are very suspicious, and we thought that we should have our own independent pathologist to give us his own opinion.
And in regards to the cell phone data that was brought to the court by the mobile service provider, you had raised some concern in regards to the extent and the volume that was presented, as well as the interpretation. Maybe if you could highlight on this, what was the issue?
Yeah, there are certain piece of information that we would like to get from Safaricom, but we do not appear to be getting this information at all. And the lawyers spoke quite at length about the shortcomings of the data that was produced, and the judge was of the view that we should continue to hear from the lawyers, and he has given us a new date on Tuesday.
So as it stands right now, we have 4 administration police officers who are in custody. As it stands, the demonstrations the Law Society has said will continue. Are you confident with the process so far in regards to achieving justice for the 3 as it stands?
Yeah, we are confident. We are confident that those that are the suspects will be prosecuted. But the message we want to send to everybody is that innocent lives should not be taken away by anybody at all. The way life of Kimani and the 2 others have been taken away. We have had cases in the past where many Kenyans, very able Kenyans, have disappeared from the country or have died in very suspicious circumstances, and Kimani happens to be one of them.
Do you hope the demonstrations that are going to be taking place here in Nairobi and across the country will perhaps send that message that the extrajudicial killings or alleged judicial killings will stop? Are you confident in that?
We are hoping that Kimani will be the last Kenyan to be killed by way of torture by the authorities. We are hoping that Kenya will not have any more people being killed at all, the way it has happened in the past. We have lost very many lives in this country through suspicious killings and murders and so on.
Thank you so much, Senior Counsel John Kaminwa, representing the Law Society of Kenya. Very confident in the process as it stands so far. But of course, this is not only touching on the judiciary of this country. Lawyer Willie Kimani indeed was a lawyer and advocate of the High Court, but also there are innocent lives, as he has stated, Joseph Mwiruri and Josephat Mwenda, who did lose their lives. And of course, the medical pathologist who was hired by the Law Society of Kenya, saying that blunt force trauma to the head, as well as strangulation, resulting in the deaths for the 3. They are proceeding with this afternoon with demonstrations across Nairobi County as well as the entire nation, even as we seek to continue following on this story to find justice for the 3, Akisa.
Thank you very much, Timothy, for that. Timothy Otieno there, speaking to Senior Counsel John Kaminwa, joining us from the Milimani Law Court as we keep following this top story for you. And still on the same, lawyers under the Law Society of Kenya have today held protest marches around the country over the killing of Willie Kimani, his client, and a taxi driver. The killings have drawn countrywide outrage, especially from civil society groups that staged demonstrations on Monday. Lawyers who have been boycotting court attendance since Monday beg your pardon. Let's now cross over back to the Milimani Law Courts, where our reporter Michelle Ngele now joins us to tell us more about the demos. Thank you very much for joining us, Michelle. Good afternoon. Are the demos as intense as what we witnessed on Monday?
Well, Akisa, we have well over 1,000 lawyers at these particular demos here. We've just left the Milimani Law Courts just a few minutes after the court case came to an end, and we are now headed to Jogoo House, which houses the Office of Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet. But the route that we will be using here today, we will be going through Ngong Road before we connect to Uhuru Highway, after which the lawyers will be heading to Jogoo House, and there they will be presenting a petition for the resignation of Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet for what they say is failure to protect Kenyans. These lawyers say that in the past few years, instances of human rights abuses in the hands of Kenyan police have been rising, including extrajudicial killings, torture, and detention. And so this is just some of the pictures of the protests here today. Banners written, "Stop extrajudicial killings." We do have a few lawyers at the back also wearing t-shirts written the same. Also here today are the families of the three human rights advocates, Willie Kimani, his client Josphat Mwenda, and taxi driver Joseph Mururi. All of them have their families here today in solidarity with the lawyers as they seek for justice. Remember, Akisa, we did have statistics earlier this week from the Independent Medical Legal Unit that more Kenyans die in the hands of police than they do in the hands of robbers. And so this is a cause for concern, and lawyers are out here today not only for their colleague, the late Willie Kimani, but for the rights of all Kenyans alike. Akisa.
Now, Michelle, you've mentioned that the families of those that were killed are also present. I don't know whether you've gotten a chance to speak to them. We just want to get some insights on what they really think about these demonstrations are currently ongoing for their loved ones.
Well, Akisa, of course, the wound is still rather raw. Willie Kimani and the two others, his client and taxi driver, their bodies were found just a few days ago, so it's still very fresh for the families here today. But they say that they have come out here in solidarity with these lawyers in the bid to get justice.